Hi, Maureen. For this Loved Elephant project, the maker used a chenille yarn. And for me, for my sample, I've used this Bernat satin yarn, which is worsted weight, and it calls for an H hook. That's 5 millimeters. And I've used a G hook so that I could not have those holes that you can see the stuffing through. And to begin, essentially what I'm trying to tell you is that you go down whatever the recommended hook for the yarn that you're using, you want to go down a size. So if they said H, I'm using G, and if that's 5 millimeter, you should use 4 millimeter until you see that your work has no gaping holes for the stuffing to be seen. Now the project starts with a magic ring. And before we do that, I need to tell you this is the tail end of the yarn and this is the working end of the yarn. And now we take our tail end, we put it in our palm. This is to make the magic ring. We wrap it around our index finger and our middle finger, wrap it around once loosely, hold that with your thumb where they meet, and from the back, you put your hook in through the loop and bring out the working yarn through. Pinch that area where they meet as you slowly remove your 2 fingers from the loop. Then you put your working yarn as you normally use when you start crocheting. And then you chain 1. There you go. You've made your magic ring. Now the first row needs you to make 6 single crochets into the magic ring. And to do that, you want to make sure that you put your hook into the loop as well as the tail end of the yarn. So both strands you should go under. You go under, yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2. You've made your first single crochet. We'll do it again because this needs 6 single crochets inside the magic ring. You go through under both strands, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull your yarn through. That's 2 single crochets done. Once again, you go inside your loop as well as the tail end of the yarn, go under, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2. That's 3. Keep doing the same thing until you've got 6 single crochets done. I have 4, 5, 6. Now to make this ring magical, you essentially pull the tail end to tighten the loop. Don't pull all the way tight, otherwise you won't be able to see the first stitch that you made, which will be the next stitch that we will go through. In normal crocheting, we would do a slip stitch to join, but here we're just gonna go crochet in the round, crochet in the round. So it's critical that you used a stitch marker to always designate the first stitch of the row. I'm gonna put my stitch marker on that first stitch that I ever made because that will be the first stitch of the next row. And now we're in row 2, which wants you to do BLO, which stands for back loop only. You might already know this, but every crochet stitch has a front loop and a back loop. This is the front loop and the back loop. For this row, we're only going to crochet into the back loop. So gently move the marker and find that back loop. That's the back loop. I'm going to single crochet in there. Gently move the marker. For the next stitch, find, this is the front loop. Sorry, you can't see that. Front loop, back loop, Front loop, back loop. We're only going to go through the back loop. Single crochet. That was our second stitch. Third stitch. Fourth stitch. Fifth stitch. Sixth stitch. Okay, we've finished our second row. Now we can actually pull that tail end a little tighter so the hole closes a little bit more. Loosen up that last stitch. Mark on your paper what row you just finished. I finished the first row, and we just finished the second row. And then move the stitch marker to the beginning of the next row. And if that's not clear, you just tug on your last stitch, and the one after that should be the beginning of the next row. So you put your stitch marker there. Now row 3 to 15 is all single crochets, but only 6 single crochets per row. So you have to do 15 repeats, oh no, rather 13 repeats of single crochet, 6 single crochets. So for the third row, we're gonna find that first stitch, which is this, single crochet on that. Now this is a very narrow tube we are making, so I use my middle finger to try to keep the work open so you can see your stitches. Now gently just move your marker so you can see the next stitch. And if you can't find it, just jiggle your last stitch and you can see the next stitch after that. That's 2, 3, 4 single crochets. And then you kind of have to manipulate your work with your middle finger to open up the tube. There's 4, I think. Yeah, there you go. 5 and 6 single crochets in this row. Pull up that stitch so you don't lose it. And mark on your paper what row you finished. That was the third row. Cross that out. Now I can move the stitch marker to the next beginning stitch. So jiggle that last stitch. Okay, then so the one after that should be the beginning of the next row, which is this one. Okay, now we need to move the tail end of the yarn out of the work area so it doesn't annoy us or bother us. And to do that, I go in through that hole that I made with the initial loop and I just pull it down. And at this point, you can tug tight now to close that hole that we made for our magic ring. Okay, now repeat this row until the 6 single crochets for every row until we get to row 15. So put my crochet hook back in there. We're ready to do row 4. Find the beginning where my marker is. That's our first stitch. There you go. 1, 2. Be patient finding these stitches because again, we're working with a very small tube of only composed of 6 stitches. So that was our second stitch. 3, 4, and just keep turning your work around and using your middle finger to keep it open, the tube open. 5, 6. So there you go. Pull the stitch up, mark what row you're in. That was row 4. And move the stitch marker to the next stitch you're gonna work. Find that next stitch by jiggling your last stitch, and then you can see it better. There you go. This is our next stitch. There you go. Row 4. We'll keep doing this for a little bit more, and then you will do the rest of the rows by yourself until row 15, and then I'll do the next video after that. But we'll do a couple more rows because I'll show you a trick on how to keep the tube open. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, pull, make the stitch a little longer. Cross out the 5th row that we just finished and move the stitch marker to the next beginning stitch, which would be this one. It's a little tedious to keep doing this in a very small work area, but it's important because otherwise you can't remember what row you're in, what the beginning is, then you're gonna have to rip up the whole work again. And this is the hack that I just created doing this project. I take a thin pen, or you can use a pencil, and I use it to open up that tube that we're working for the trunk of this elephant. And when you keep it there, you can keep your stitch, the stitches are more visible. So now to work row 6, I'm just going to find my first stitch. Oops, make sure that your yarn is in front of that pencil or pen. Find the first stitch, crochet, single crochet, 1, second stitch, and you're not in danger of trying to crochet through the other stitches that might be in the back. 2, 3. Just keep turning around the work to show the next stitch you're gonna do. 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, there you have it. We have done 6 rows together, and I want you to do the same routine. Pull up, mark what row you're in, change your stitch marker until you get to row 15, and I will see you on the next video. Ciao.